It is my pleasure in a moment, a hot sec, to intro Raquel Hatter. But before I do, I want to introduce her as an Aspen Ascend Fellow. And
Yeah.
when we were getting going in February of 2012, we put out a kind of a case statement, 2 generations, 1 future, which was sort of packaging up the data, some of the early practices, and some of the recommendations in a report. And when we released it, we didn't want to just release a report. We also announced our first cohort of fellows. And our fellowship was a very deliberate strategy to find leaders who were sitting on front edge of levers, formal and informal, innovative ideas that they would lead out into society through post-secondary, early childhood, health and well-being, social capital, because it's always about leaders of leaders of leaders. It's never one program, one person, one piece. And one of the pieces that we do in the fellowship is we take the text-based reading and Socratic method that has been very Aspenified, meeting Ascend, to then think about big ideas, narrative, and then action plans. And when I think about Raquel Hatter, who has had some of the most powerful positions as a commissioner of human services in Tennessee, has done a lot of work with Aboriginal and tribal communities, is now at the Kresge Foundation as their managing director for human services. There's no title that could fully capture the essence of Dr. Raquel Hatter, her brilliance, her fabulousness, a technical term. But if you're part of the fellowship and part of some of the Aspen works, you might have read The Letter from Birmingham City Jail by Martin Luther King. And whenever I think of Raquel Hatter, the only title that seems to fit is She is an Extremist for Love. So here, my friends, is Raquel Hatter.
It's on. Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's afternoon, is it? Okay, great. Just checking.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited. It's like a holiday in America. And this is the place to be.
That's right.
Okay, here's the situation. We're about to set the tone. We are so privileged and honored and blessed to have some amazing parents with us today. And that's just one dimension of who they are.
That's right.
They're parent experts, and just in case you don't know the definition of expert, it says that it's when you have a comprehensive or authoritative knowledge about a particular area. So what I submit to you is that each of us are experts in our own lives. And so it's a privilege to be at the table with parents who are going to break it down to the ground. And so we just got to be humble and listen. Now here's another thing. Sometimes folk have not done this before, and they're not at ease sometimes. So what we're going to do is make it all right. So I want y'all to repeat after me. I don't have long. Y'all know they got us on, shortness of life Seneca. He says, not that life is short, it's what you do with your time, and the sin lives up to that. So here we go. Repeat after me. Say, I got a feeling. Everything gonna be all right. We gonna be all right?
We'll be all right.
Yeah.
All right then. So we're gonna be all right today. No differences in us. My granddaddy would say, you ain't breathing because you're good at it. So that's how we're gonna start. All right, here we go. We all the same. All right, they invited me, just so you know. So excited to be here with this panel and get to see some folks that I've known for a long time. I have to say Lynn and Ren, because they came to help us in Tennessee some years ago. I've had the honor to meet Shannon today, and Daniel, we've talked on the phone and talked today as well. Thank you so much for being here. In the absence of you, we can't do this. We need you. It's a team.
Okay.
So I wanted to start off with a couple of things to level set for this amazing conversation. First of all, I think it's just a shout out to Ascend for bringing everybody here today and recognizing the importance of parents. And to start with parents makes a huge difference. It says something big. So thank you for doing that. And to be clear, we love researchers. I went to a couple of schools. I think education is important. All that's great. But what I know for sure is that families have been trying to tell us for years about brain science and toxic stress. They just didn't have the words for it. But what we know is they sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's another way of saying toxic stress, okay? So I'm glad we have finally caught up with what families have been trying to tell us. So part of how we're going to start today is I want to give you just a little bit of my own thinking as it pertains to families and the privilege I've had to be on the front lines with families across various systems, including child welfare, mental health, human services in both the public and nonprofit sector. I can remember when. What I know is if I knew what I knew now about the implications of poverty for families who are living in economically insecure situations, I would have made better decisions. And a lot of people, if you're humble, you know it would have been different if we knew what we knew now in terms of the decisions that we made, quote unquote, on behalf of families. And I can remember a family when I was a vice president of a child welfare organization in Michigan, coming to our organization and wanting to talk to me. Had no idea what this mom might want. When I met with her, she could have talked to me about a number of things, about how the parent agency agreement was going, about the treatment plan for her kids and their families. But what she said to me is, when I come here, I don't feel respected. That's what she said to me. She's like, people don't speak to me when I come here. That was totally unacceptable. After we get all the science and all that together, the simple things, you matter. How are you? These are the things that put people at ease and make it easier to lean in. The simple things. Figure out who in your organization thinks people don't matter, and then you figure out what you need to do about that. So, the next thing I'll say to you is that during that journey, I had the opportunity to meet a young man through if people remember, Systems of Care, family-driven, youth-guided voice. And he was telling us, a lot of organizations, professionals from across the country, about how it really works in systems. And I remember going up to him and saying, I want you to come to my city and to my organization, telling him what we're trying to do. He's like, I don't believe that. I said, well, I want you to come. He came, met with every child that we had at the time in that residential program, visited our school, on his own, like no script or anything, gave us advice, told us what we could do different and better. Listening, engaging, designing in partnership with families, community, children, and youth is paramount. It's a prerequisite. It has to happen. I can remember when I was in Tennessee in a nonprofit organization I had the honor and privilege to lead. We had a relative caregiver program, great grandparents, as old as 90, raising their grandchildren, sitting across from them, concerned about their child who may have had a substance abuse issue, and also trying to make sure that their grandkids and great-grandkids would graduate, and also needing a break, and also sick and tired, the other word for toxic stress, for being taxed and judged by a system that was not designed to be supportive to them. What we know is that families and communities are more agile than systems. Families and communities are more agile and resilient than systems. And then finally, in my more recent role before coming to Kresge was as a commissioner in Tennessee, and being able to be on the front lines talking with those families about the realities. Remember sitting across from parents, especially young moms, who had histories of trauma, and these programs are designed for cookie cutting. You can be in compliance and not make a difference.
That's right.
That's why we have the space to innovate, and that's why Lynn is my friend. And so, what I submit to you, there is a way forward. And we're so happy to be here today to have this conversation with you all and to have this conversation with the parents. And at Kresge, we too are all in for 2Gen. We have a bunch of Kresge partners here, so shout out to all you for being a part of the movement, and to my Kresge colleagues that are here. We are excited to continue to be a partner with 2Gen across this country. I'm going to kick it off by asking my colleagues that's with me today to open up by telling us a little bit about your stories. And I'll start with our parents, and I'll come back to you, Lynn.
That's perfect.
And you can just let us know. I'll start with you, Lynn, okay? All right. So tell us about.
No pressure.
Tell us about some of the challenges you faced and how the organizations that you work with were helpful to you, and suggestions you would have for how to fix this situation.
Well, I'll briefly describe a little bit of my story first. My name is Raquel, and I'm currently a parent support provider for Safe Care through a nonprofit called Family Tree. I have 3 kiddos, 16, 14, and 11, and recently engaged. Shout out to my peeps in Colorado if they're watching. And I am currently pursuing my bachelor's degree in social work with a minor in public policy in the fall through Metro State University. I was raised in a household with my grandmother who was raising 3 or 4 generations. All of the kids kind of endured a lot of violence. We've seen everything that you could possibly think of. These are all normal occurrences to us. So when my grandma passed away, she had Parkinson's disease and cancer. I moved in with my mom, who was also struggling with addictions. I became a teenage mother at the age of 14. And I decided I didn't want my kids to be in that same type of environment. From there, I had more kiddos, of course, tried schooling. I never realized how traumatizing my environment was for me until I became a teacher at Head Start. And I was trained in trauma-informed care and ACEs because these things were just normal to me. I currently am an advocate to try to move families out of those systems and help break those generational curses. Just a small snippet of what I do is I am a part of the Colorado Commission Child Support Board. I also had the opportunity to be a part of a SIN's initiative for post-secondary education, as well as I am a part of an organization called Jeffco Prosperity Partners, which was made actually to follow kiddos from Head Start all the way up into graduation. And my coach sat with me and said, what do you want for yourself? Nobody sitting in that chair had actually asked me that. It was always wrapped around my kids and my kids' dreams and what I wanted for my family, never what I wanted for myself. And I actually joined it because I wanted to help other families, not because I wanted anything for myself. I was like, oh yeah, I want to help other families and inspire other Head Start families. That was a pivotal point in my life where I realized that I didn't have a lot of goals and ambitions, and the ones that I did have were unrealistic and just non-existent. I have been a part of that program for almost 5 years now, and I am one of a very active family in that program, and I'm also the chair of the Parent Advisory Board for that program as well. So I'm very, very passionate about moving my family out of that system, as well as while I'm on my path to success, keeping them on the same path as well. And we're growing and changing and learning together.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Shannon.
Hi, my name's Shannon Davis. I'm 30 years old, and I'm from Garrett County, Maryland. I have 3 children, all boys. Shelton's 6, Brantley's 4, and Carson, who I have with me today, is 14 months. I came to the program because I was a single mother looking for help, but also because I am a recovering addict, and I was in a bad place. So I went to Community Action, seeking help for housing and, just for all the other struggles I had at the time. I met with Barbara Miller, and she actually helped tremendously. Right away, I knew she cared. It was a bond that I got with her that I haven't gotten before in any other, places that I had went, rehabilitation centers. But with her, it was different. I felt comfortable, and she actually drove me to a detox program, and I completed that detox and delivered a healthy baby boy about a year ago. And since then, I've worked closely with Community Action and so many programs. Started with a self-esteem class, and now I have my own home through housing. I get energy assistance, SNAP benefits. Getting ready to start him in some early child care so I can start looking for employment or doing some schooling. I actually do some photography for Community Action. I go from different facilities, senior centers, daycare centers, and that's my passion. So that's great, to be able to do that. Some struggles that I've had, with parenting and stuff. I mean, a lot of struggles, but just the transition. A lot of people just think that it's black and white. You just go from, with the addiction, you're supposed to just, get clean and then get a job, do this, do that, right away. And the transition is not just black and white. It's very, very hard. Just making time for myself. With having 3 boys, and that's been my biggest struggle was the transition and learning how to do everything all over again. But I've worked close with them, and it's been a good journey.
Thank you, Shannon. Mr.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Torres, and I'm from Strive, New York. And I've been up since 1 in the morning, just nervous.
Me too.
Yeah, so, but why am I here? This is the question. Why not? I heard Lynn speaking earlier, and Raquel, and they talking about what do I dream of? What do I want to be? I first said I want to be the president, and which is for real. And then 2, I said I would like to have my own safe haven where I could give to others and show them what they gave me. So my story is, well, I was born in Puerto Rico. I was brought over here at the age of 6. My mom and father broke up. That led to a lot of misbehaviors. I wanted my father back. I didn't want no stepfathers in the house at all. I misbehaved a lot. Threw a lot of items in the house. And my mom ended up getting slashed by this stepfather I had. I used to get physically abused, and that kind of like messed me up. It's kind of dysfunctional. I used to, there was no childcare back then. I was like 7. My sister was 6. My mother would leave us home by ourselves, said, don't go outside till I get home from work. But she had got cut by my stepfather, and that kind of like traumatized me. I used to, every single knock, I used to have like a weapon at the age of 7, 8. So that was kind of rough, not having a father. My mom ended up passing away when I was young, 14. Ended up bad hands, addiction, etc. And I found out that I was having a baby boy when I was in jail, and the mother didn't want him. So I stepped up, took a DNA test. Maury said it was mine, so I stepped up. And I did what my mother would have did for me, which is take care of me as the best as she can. And that my child ended up being having autism, so that was like another struggle. There was a lot of closed doors, a lot of no's. Me coming from a bad background of drugs, I carried that into the New York system. Well, I wasn't doing drugs, but I had a history, and every time I would apply for a program, they would look at my background, and since I had a boy who was 2 months old, they would ask questions. They how you doing? I have to attend this program, that program. So it was kind of hard, especially when he got diagnosed with autism. It was a lot of therapy, ABA, physical, occupational therapy, and most of them, he wasn't getting all the services because of some was funding, other was jurisdiction, certain paras or certain teachers didn't want to travel to a different borough for a half hour, and that was kind of challenging. Even yesterday, I had an interview with the teacher. They give him homework that he's not comprehending, and he gets frustrated. He cries, and I'm looking at this homework, and this is kind of hard for a kid that has the spectrum. And they was talking about failing home because they have him in a regular public class setting, but he's special needs. I'm the one that knows him. I know he could do the work, but in the class, they kind of speed it up along, and they trying to give him a state test. And he's not ready for it, so that's another challenge. And for like 7 years, I didn't have no childcare. So it was kind of hard, like getting childcare and then getting services, no job. So what helped me was a program, and it was called Strive. I'm going to say Strive because they did help me. I picked up the flyer and it said if you're on welfare, if you're a single parent, et cetera, and I fit all the criteria. I went and they taught me how to be patient, how to be a father, how to look for a job, how to build a resume. I wasn't pressured by probation or by any ACS agency saying, hey, you ain't show up there, no, we're gonna cut your benefits. It was more voluntarily. So they helped me out with childcare. They were giving me tickets to go other places. So now I want to give that back, because it's like now I have my own housing. So I do live in the projects in New York City, but I also, me and my girlfriend purchased a house, and I feel good about that. A couple struggles with my child as a single parent was not having family support. Sometimes I had a job opportunity. They was paying $20 an hour. Hey, I needed it, but nobody was there for childcare. But I held on. I got a job 2 years ago. I was able to go on vacation. I went to Puerto Rico. I met up with my dad. He saw my son. We met up. And unfortunately, Maria passed. His house got messed up. But now he's living with me in the apartment, so it's like 3 generations together. And then, it all comes together like, hey, it had to happen. Like. So now I'm just working on fixing his house. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be attending this because, again, childcare is the big issue for single parents. If you're not working and you're receiving SNAP benefits, hey, it's all good. You get to fill up your cart with food, you get childcare, you don't got to work. But for single parents who's really trying to get ahead, I work and I go to the supermarket and I come out with just one grocery bag and it's like, wow, I can't make ends meet. And now I gotta pay daycare and I can't go nowhere else. I can't go overtime. So I'm glad I have my father home. Yeah. And now, he's raising my boy. And I do want to give back. So I am in the right place. I'm out in the field. I do help others who were in my position. I tell them, let's go over here. I can help you. I can help you do a resume. And also with the job that I'm in, I'm a contractor for Oppenheimer Funds in New York. And they give opportunities for kids in the mailroom and stuff. So I then referred a lot of people that I know are serious. Mm-hmm. Because, you can go to a program and they go offer you as many things, but if you don't want to change, it's just not going to work. I was talking to someone back there, I forgot her name, but she said, humility is the ability to look at reality. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I really had to get humble. You have to be in a humble situation for you to look at the whole scene and say, hey, this is serious. And I'm here, but it's not because you guys want me here, it's because you guys all have the same idea. You're just trying to find out what solutions. So I am in the right place. I am. So I want to thank you guys for letting me come out here and share my story. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
yes, ma'am.
Miss Assistant Secretary Lynn Johnson is in the house.
Hello, Raquel.
That's right.
I'm not going to talk about me because I just don't want to. I do what I want.
I hope so.
I do.
We counting on that.
Hello, Ascend family. I want to say just one thing. So much learning comes from this. Right. We just heard we already learned. We can go home. You guys are awesome. That's right. But I wanted to point something out, and I need my glasses to do it. Some of you have read the book, The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. You heard the story of poverty and moving through poverty. Some of you have read the book, A Child Called It by Dave Pelzer. It's a person's story. I don't know if people have read Between a Rock and a Hard Place by Anthony Johnson, Girls Like Us by Rachel Lloyd, The Other Westmore by Wes Moore, Born Bright by Nicole Mason. These are books and stories that I read growing up. That may be why I'm sitting in this spot. But I know there's some other books and stories being written, not just on this stage, but throughout this country, that as leaders, if we read those books while people are going through those journeys, we could do so much more. I know that we're writing a book, right? Rin's writing a book right here. I Have a Voice by Congresswoman Rin Bell.
That's right.
Courage by famous photographer Shannon Davis. And Building Strong Lives by CEO and president of his own nonprofit foundation. And as we listen to what they have said they want to dream to be, as we listen to the barriers that systems and people have put in their way, those books are going to be on my list of books that everybody should read. And with that, I'm giving you all your own White House bookmark so that you can have your book and keep writing, because this is what will change America.
That's
This
right.
matters.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
that's amen.
That's all. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You know, you guys are amazing, so thank you so much for our initial conversation. What I want to say before we go on to the next question is, what you just heard is toxic stress. These are the choices that the current system makes families make. These are, it's a penalty for progress. And many of us, because Daniel and I were talking, all of us have a story. We just don't know everybody's story. And it's not the same, but everybody who's breathing has a story.
That's right.
Let's be sure about that. Some stories make the news, some don't. But everybody has a story. That's a fact. The reality of it is that people, it's the human nature to want better. What we don't talk about enough are the penalties for progress. Everybody wants better. And what I appreciated, Rin, when you talked about, because sometimes we meet people and they say, well, people don't want better, or people don't want things different. And you're like, it's the belief that it may not be possible for you. That's right. It's not that you don't want better, it's the belief that it may not be possible for us. I'm a Head Start alumni. I grew up in my grandparents' house until I was 8 years old. Not much difference. My question for you, given y'all gonna have all these fancy positions, and when you get these roles, people have lots of expectations. What would you do based on what you know? Like what policy, what's the first thing you would do if you were in Lynn's chair? Because she said she could do what she wants to do.
Only here.
Well, no, we're gonna help you with that. We got you. Yeah, we got her? Yeah. We with you, Lynn.
Good thing.
I guess we'll just go down the line if that's okay.
Yes.
For me, I think the most impactful thing for me was listening and giving me the opportunity and a platform and a voice. I found that in a lot of the systems that I was involved in, everybody had their best interest at hand for me, and they knew what it looked like, what it smelled like, what it tastes like. And I felt like I had to fit into a cookie cutter box of what self-sufficiency looked like for me. My self-sufficiency looks different from Shannon's or from Daniel's or from, a great grandparent. So giving families the opportunity to engage in these programs and these organizations because they're for them. And I feel like if you want to see more families succeed in the process, they should be a part of that process. So for me, that was one of the most impactful things, is being able to have a voice and people actually listen. I mean, I came in when Lynn was Director of Human Services. I was telling her how bad her system sucked.
Right.
And it wasn't just
Those
me.
were the words.
I mean, it was a plethora of other people that were surprised that a director of the systems that we were involved in was sitting down and saying, what's the problem? And allowing us to be honest, as well as being a part of that process. So that's one of the biggest things for me, as well as when what Janine said so well was meeting parents where they dream. I mean, work with families, partner with families. We want to walk with everybody and be a part of the process, because that makes us want to be way more successful. So for me, I don't know exactly what policy that might look like, but definitely engaging families as well as mental health would be something I definitely dive into, because like I said, had I known about what I was enduring at a younger age, I would have been able to know how to combat that. As well as I come from a community where mental health is like something that's considered that you go to if you're on your way to the nut house. It's not something that's impactful and is a part of your well-being. So I would definitely push for more funding for mental health and substance abuse awareness.
Thank you. Ms. Shannon?
Just kind of what Ren said, with addiction and mental health is, I know where I live, it's kind of frowned upon, you know. A lot of people that I've known, good people that I've known, friends, even some family of mine that struggle with addiction and mental health, they're scared kind of to go get help, you know, to look down upon and stuff. So the one-on-one time that I've had with people at Community Action, people that care, you can tell they care, they genuinely care. That's something that I would like to do, you know, would do too as well, is to be able to just actually be one-on-one with someone and not just you know, group settings or rehabilitation centers, just to actually talk to someone and show them that there's people that actually care about their situation and what they're going through. And that was what helped me a lot. So
Very good. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for passing me the magic wand, like she said.
Yeah.
Whatever I want, because she's in control. I would.
You are now president.
I would do something for childcare, subsidizing some income people that parents that work and trying to make ends meet shouldn't have to pay so much childcare. I think that the state should cover at least 85% of the child, depending if he's special needs or not. Childcare is like a real big issue. Another one would be funding for special needs, children with autism, making sure that each child gets all their services, making sure that they go to a home and they're monitored, and when they're in school, that they making sure that they're getting the right education, have the right para, and not just in a regular public setting like my son. They have them in a regular public classroom, and I don't think that's fair, you know. So I would work on special needs education and then the child care.
Thank you. So Lynn, I'm gonna give you a question to hold tight on because I have a follow-up for Ren. Okay. So one, I want to know at what point did you realize that you had to just go to the front and listen to it to the families? What was the trigger for you? When were you like, no nonsense about it? Ren, a question for you. So for everyone in this room, a lot of people hire staff to work in the systems that you guys are talking about. Like, what should we look for? What should people look for when they're hiring? Like, how do you know you got the right person? Like, how do you know you don't? Like, what do we do? When people come, get great resumes, and like, what are the indicators of compassion and care beyond just talking about it, of true humility that you referenced, which I love the quote of whoever said that to you. Like, how do you do that? We all trying to figure that out for sure. So you got any ideas on how you can pick the right people?
I think for what Lynn really did well was she sat down with the parents that were a part of Jeffco Prosperity Partners and asked them what are some of their values. We all realized that one of our values was sweat equity. We have other families joining the program, but we have families that we know are ready to move forward and are ready to partner and walk with their coach. So I think for me, I can't speak for any other family, but I'm willing to put in the sweat equity. You know, I want it, and that's just that's the first step, is just finding the people that want it. Sometimes they just don't know how to move forward from there. So it's not everybody. I don't think there's, you know, everybody just is ready. You know, I was in a place where I was comfortable in assistance. I was scared to take $1 raise because I didn't want to lose Medicaid. You know, I didn't want to take an increase in pay because I was scared to lose that cushion that I had because I had no family or support to back me if I fell. But that one person, that one coach that sat me down and was like, let's make a plan. It's your plan. I'm here. That's all it took for me to say, all right, let's do this. I'm ready to put in the sweat equity. You know, I'm ready to take that leap off of that cliff. I just needed that one person. So I don't know if I'd have all the characteristics or traits for that question, but I do know that I wanted it. And I do know it only took that one person to be like, I'm going to stay up with you, you know, the whole entire time.
That's good. Thank you.
I was in probation officer for 18 years. I worked in a prison, I worked for the state parole office, and then I was a federal United States probation officer. And I had a guy come out of prison and come to my office after he'd been out for a little while, and he asked me to do a urine test, and that red flag for a PO to be asked to do a urine test. And I said, what is going on, why? He said, you know, I just spent 3 weeks working with Human Services to try to get some help, and I just need to go back to prison to clear my head. That was my first idea that maybe something's not working. Maybe. Then, ultimately, I got into this field. I had a governor that said, why don't you see if you could change the system up a little? And people kept telling me how great we were in the human services system. And I kept thinking, poverty rates going down, child abuse and neglect going up. Things are not working here. So what do we need to do different? I have a master's in social work. I've been to tons of different schools. I've had a lot of training. And yet, the outcome piece of what I'd been trained for was not happening. And so I decided that maybe there were some people that were smarter than those of us who are in the business. And that was those that are walking it themselves every single day. And that's why I went to the families and said, what would be different? What could change? What's your barrier? And we found that quality education, absolute must, plus opportunities. I had opportunities along my path. Equal success as defined by them, not defined by me. My success definitions are nothing now like the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families that I met through Jeffco Prosperity. But at the same time, their desire is no different than my desire for what I wanted. And so once I started hearing, bluntly, she was kind when she said my system sucked. That's not quite how they said it. But they were right. When we overly complicate our systems, we figure out that safety net is a net that keeps people stuck in it. And until we undo that, and the only times that the families we do with, not for, came to me was when they could not get it knocked down. I was the opportunity piece. When I made the phone call to mental health and said, why do you only have hours 9 to 4 and parents have to take off work and kids have to be pulled out of school? Or when they couldn't get their bank account, or when they couldn't buy that house because of debt, that's when the director stepped in and said, well, I got you. We're in this together. I'll make that phone call, and then you take it from there with your coach. Those were the things that made the difference. And so that was when I realized the success within 2 years. Here we've got 60 months for TANF, and we have people walking and being self-sufficient and getting degrees in 24 months in ways that I had never seen before. Parents matter. They know what to do for themselves and their families. We need to learn to duct tape our mouths, use our 2 ears, listen bigger, listen better.
Well, thank you.
So true.
It is true. That's amazing. I really appreciate that. So as we think about this discussion too, Lynn, and I wanted to make sure the other panelists have more to say, if you do, in your new role that we're also excited about, what are some of your priorities, especially as it pertains to this and you knowing how the family how policies bump up against systems? When you were talking, I was thinking back to the day when I may have been a program director, and for those of you who've been in child welfare, who are in child welfare, lots of rules around families with addiction if they don't pass a test and not being able to see their kids and not understanding the dynamics of codependency and kids worrying about their parents if they can't talk to them on the phone, and all these just rules that would be in place that make things more difficult because families worry about their parents, worry about their kids, kids worry about their phone, their parents. And then I remember just having to go to the judge and talk to the whole crew. I was like, hey, we got to do something different. This won't work. I mean, what threat possibly is the parent going to hold on the phone? Like, what are you worried about? What you don't recognize is this child is not going to sleep tonight. And then there's going to be anxiety. Then this child's going to act out. And then you're going to think it's because the parent didn't pass the test and didn't make it, when the reality of it is, you didn't let them talk. These are the things that we have to pay attention to. And these are the things we have the ability to influence if we recognize it. Public sector has a role. Private sector has a role. It's partnerships and listening to families, making that difference.
Coming to ACF after 16-month confirmation process, you sit on the sidelines and you get to watch and say, I wish I could. I want to point out right now, because I don't know if I have seen this in the past, is Shannon's in the back. She runs my child care program. Michela's right here. We've got Cheryl over here. You've got your federal partners with ACF sitting in this room because they believe in what you do. That's one great part about this. President Trump has said to us, get rid of unnecessary rules and regulations. We cannot pass a rule or a reg until we get rid of two. There's nothing better than having a boss that says do that. He also says, I don't want you doing compliance anymore. Get to outcomes, get to action. Again, for someone like me, action is everything. And so having that blessing to move as big and as fast as we want to, we're going to do that until somebody tells us we can't. And that's why I joked about I do what I want, in the sense that we're given the freedom to make a difference, and shame on us if we waste the time that we sit in these positions, because this is something that is given to us, and that is something extremely valuable. Looking at Shannon childcare, critical, absolutely critical. She is working on so many different ideas on how we can improve and change how we do childcare. Faith-based groups, nonprofits, businesses, and government are the four legs of a stool that parents and children can stand on. We can never do it by ourselves in government, but we have to learn to partner better. The other piece that I think I'm trying to bring to ACF is a sense of urgency. And this is maybe more so because it did take me 16 months to get here, but as I look at the time I have to sit in this seat, that urgency, when I talk to my families and I talk to their kids, because we do everything whole family to Jen, so the kids are there with the parents, and the kids will tell me something about their school day, and the parents will tell me something about their school day or their work day. They are not telling me that they have a really serious problem for me to turn around and say, well, let me put together a task force and see if we can help you. They are not telling me that their children who were abused or neglected by someone are waiting for me to do another task force so that they can go to bed at night and sleep well peacefully. They do not have that time, so why do we? We have had kids in our systems that are waiting for us to finish writing our reports that have all been written. Every one of you have seen them. Now it's time for action. Every single thing I want to see happen while I'm here is action. We have that opportunity. We have urgency, and we have the support to move things forward. I don't want to look at one more parent in the eyes and say to them, well, we have a subcommittee here at the federal level, and we're going to do, we can't do that anymore. We have to move. We have to move fast, and we have to move with you. There is not enough of us to do what we know needs to be done. This needs to be an army from the ground up, and we will get out of your way the best way we can so you could be successful with your parents and your families that you are working with. It's the only way to get it done, but it can get done. And that's my biggest priority. And then I'll give you numbers, 123,000 foster kids that need permanency within 12 months. We're gonna measure that. Number of individuals that need to move from being working poor to livable wage and not needing to come in and grovel for assistance because we made it too hard. We are counting and measuring how we help you help people move to that next step. So those are just some of the things that my poor staff are having to jump and learn and move, and it's fun.
Great. I'll have some follow-ups for you. Now, this is Assistant Secretary of United States Health and Human Services Department Administration, Children and Families, sitting right here.
Talk to me.
And you have her email and everything. So, what question would you have for her? Do you have any questions or advice? Because she needs advice too.
Oh, I need tons of advice.
Okay. I had a issue with ACS, call it Human Child Services, when they come and check the parent to see if the kid is doing all right, because supposedly the parent is doing things that he ain't supposed to. Well, me being a single parent and having a drug addiction, background, almost like 10 years ago, it's always used against me when I always try to go into ask for help for a handout. And it always leads to frustration, and someone knocking on my door, hey, let me see your child, or let me see your cabinets, and so, okay, I've been doing this almost 10 years, then you go investigate. But I've been through that numerous times for no reason. There's like actually no reason for them to go into my home or try to investigate me and my background when I have done no wrong. All they're doing is checking a background because I want to go to, say I want to go see a psychiatrist. This is overwhelming. I'm a single parent, I have no help. I'll go over there, ask for help. I give them my benefit card or whatever. And then they'll look into my background and say, hey, we got to check you out because you were a single parent, you were dad, you had all this background. And that kind of throws me off. It's like, I don't even want to deal with this.
Absolutely.
And, it's like, why do I got to be on probation? I finished that a long time ago. And it feels like I'm on the spotlight, like if I'm a bad parent, or their intentions is more like come targeting you instead of trying to like help the child.
Right.
And,
That's good.
It just makes you feel like, hey, am I doing something really wrong? Like, am I going to get my child took? I can't sleep now. And I had incidents with that.
Okay. Lynn?
The change of culture to dignity and respect and listening to you is really critical. And that is the success, is the dignity and the respect that you deserve. We didn't have clients anymore, we had customers because we serve you. And that changes how you get treated with that. Now from ACF, we have put together programs for men, fatherhood initiatives, gender-based initiatives, motherhood, fatherhood, parenthood, togetherhood, whatever that takes so that you don't have to do that alone. And we are growing that as one of our top priorities.
And to add to it, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. And let's be clear that it is historically we know 10 minutes as a sand time. Before I get to ask them questions, they can ask questions, right? Okay, just checking the script. Historically, we know that in these type of programs, fathers have been marginalized. That's a fact. There are policies that are today designed that forces mothers to be untruthful or out of compliance. To tell the truth would be a problem. And so it doesn't create the space for parents to be honest. That's number one. However, the folks who ask the question, if they're in the same seat, they probably would have the same answer. Let's be clear about that. So that's something that's important. The other thing is the issue of racial inequity. There's no doubt that if we don't know all the details, we can't go into today. There's a lot of reasons why probably you've experienced a number of things, but I'm certain, if we're all honest about it, that plays a role. There's disproportionality with that. It also speaks to the disproportionate number of Black and brown children in the system across the country. So we have to be honest about these things. And I was here before. They asked me to come back. What we know is that inequity is not unintentional. That's right. And those are facts. And we have people like my brother here, Joe, over here from Center for Urban Families. He's a champion on the ground in Baltimore doing it, trying to make things better for fathers, men, whole families. But he's a champion for fathers. He has his own story. And there's a lot of people like him in this country. And it's because of people like him and others, including yourself, that these things can be resolved. And you being here today and standing in this forum makes it plain, because people read about it. They don't know the story, the real. It's bigger than even a story. It's a lived experience. I'm not supposed to cry. But it's real. So with that, I don't have a joke immediately. But I'll think of one.
I had a...
So Lynn.
Yes.
Who else has a question for Lynn, by the way?
Well, I kind of... Maybe we should do this later, but just small story. Like, in the middle of my life, I got a knock on my door, and I ended up with 3 of my cousins, due to drugs still plaguing my family. So at one moment, I had a 2-month-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 15-year-old overnight. I was in college. I was taking college courses, and I was working full time. Fortunately, I was surrounded by Head Start and Jeffco Prosperity Project, who helped me fill those holes, like watch the kids for me while I went in to do my final exams and stuff like that. Head Start helped me get a job and put the 2 kids in full day classrooms for me while I worked in a low stimulus classroom. But my question is, like, being kinship provider was the hardest job I've ever had in my life. And there were no real supports for me as a kinship provider, and no real supports for my cousins who suffered from trauma, like intense trauma to this day, needed more than just standard mental health services. They needed intense services. As well as I felt like the guardian ad litem for them knew nothing about the kids, but was representing them in court. So I guess for me, my biggest struggle for that, and my question is, how can we make it easier? I would have probably been able to keep my little cousins for longer if I would have had more supports as a kinship provider. So I'm hoping that moving forward, there's more resources for those kids and for kinship providers. So I hope that that's something that you guys are looking for.
That's exactly.
Now you got me crying.
I'm sorry.
I got to get out from between these two.
Well, you know, I know we got to turn it over for questions, but they don't get this opportunity. This doesn't happen. So this is their moment. And y'all can just, maybe you won't ask
She
me to
does
come
what
back.
she wants.
Right. So,
Just what we do.
Ms. Shannon, anything you want to ask?
No, not this time.
Well, see, she's giving you grace. You should thank her. But you know how to reach her if you need to.
Yeah, I got your
We got
email.
Hey, and I love that.
That's
I love
right.
that. And Ren is under what she went through on that day that she got that call. She had gotten a car through the Prosperity Partners. The community helps with things. And she could take her 3 kids where they needed to go. She could go to school. Now she had 6. And so they worked to get that vehicle turned into a van. But that doesn't happen in our government systems. It happened because we had community built, which is what so many of you do.
Right.
At the same time, this triggered, may I say?
Yeah.
This triggered her own trauma. I mean, her own life that she went through, from grandma to her mother to her own children, and then her teenage children. You guys, you got to know that. It's crazy. But this all became just this whole emotional, difficult time period. And so I am really proud at ACF right now with the Children's Bureau. Primary prevention is number 1. And if any of you have heard Jerry Milner talk, he is a man on a mission, that we are there for those types of situations with kin. The new Family First Prevention Act, they are talking about prevention, but after you're in the system. So between our primary prevention and our new Family First Act, there's a lot of money that is going to be flowing ultimately to do things that Rin would have needed from our child welfare services. The other thing that we need to do as a system, culturally, is that poverty, trauma, struggles are not a reason to have your children removed.
That's right.
Those are not reasons for child welfare to get involved and question your past behavior. We have to change culture, and it's not just in poverty areas, not just in family areas, but everywhere across the system. Child abuse, neglect, everywhere, the culture shift has to happen, and I think we have started that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you to all our ACF friends. You guys are amazing. We really do appreciate you. So any closing remarks? We have 2 minutes, so we have to divide that up amongst ourselves.
I
did
give
see
you
the
my
sign.
time.
So anything you would like to close on before we open it up for questions?
I would like to say thank you for everyone getting together and for our children and to see how we could change new ways, new policies. And I'm really grateful to be here in this platform. I was a junkie, man. I'm here trying to make change my life, and now I want to help others. So thank you guys for having me. I'm really grateful.
Ms. Shannon?
Yeah, I just would like to thank you guys as well. This is the first time I've ever been to anything like this, and just to see everybody come together for people like us, it's just overwhelming a little bit and emotional, but thank you. You guys are doing a great job.
I feel like I needed a whole 2 minutes. Once you give me a voice, I just don't shut up.
Yay!
Again, I just have to piggyback off of what they were saying, and I'm just so excited about these conversations, and I just appreciate being here. As well as I just wanted to kind of just put a thought out there is investing in families as well. Yeah, it does matter. As well as, families like to see families, be successful. And we like to partner with families that have our same backgrounds. So, invest in those families moving forward, as well as, like Janine said, that's where we're dreaming. So I appreciate everybody's listening today. Thank you.
Very quickly, because time's up, I want to say just a couple things. One, thank you all. I've learned things already this morning, but I want to you all, quit using confidentiality as an excuse to not integrate and work with each other. We have to deal with that. It's a big deal. Truly, truly count success. Know your numbers and brag on it for people. We need to know that when we go to the Hill. We need to be able to explain that to people. Community matters. These guys are successful because we have built a community of people that are working. Build that community and do it fast. Again, I go back to the urgency. Be part of the education of advocates, policymakers. We need your voice. And one thing I would ask each of you to get to your congressmen and senators and your legislators, one size does not fit all. And I have fought on the one size things. We get a good idea and we make it a law. It is not how families operate. So get to it, be the educators of people on the Hill so that we can get things moving. We can't do it by ourselves. We have to have more advocacy. And always remember to challenge the safety net. They don't want to stay in the safety net. They want to be on that trampoline and jump up to success. So that's
Thank you very much. And before I open it up for questions, I just want to really thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your courage. And Shannon, I want you to know that you guys aren't people like us. We're all in this together.
That's right.
It's just us. That's what I want you to know. Keep that in mind. And I think that the other thing I would say is, as Ann opened up talking about being self-examined leaders, being self-examined human beings, the art of humility is reflected on our own lives and knowing the things that we hope nobody ever finds out. These are the things that you haven't told your own kids yet.
You haven't been through confirmation.
So what I'm saying, yeah. You know what's amazing is that if you take a moment and reflect back on your own life and think about decisions that we've made, it empowers you to suspend judgment.
That's right.
That's one of the number one things that's getting us all messed up in America today on a number of levels is just people not suspending judgment. We are not different from you guys. We all have a story. We all matter. And as my granddaddy said, y'all remember, we ain't breathing because we good at it. Now we're going to open it up for questions. Here we go. Look, you on point. I see you.
Thank you. I'm a parent ambassador with Ascend. I have been involved, since 2014. I am also an attorney. I have served as an attorney guardian ad litem for children in Columbus, Ohio. I also do work in the area of unemployment. So this is what I would say. Parents and families, you ask, they're your customers. So you ask anybody else in any other business would ask their customer what works.
That's right.
That's right.
2, I became a parent ambassador because of my own struggles with having to start over from nothing. So the systems that are in place, i.e. filling out paperwork and documentation for Medicaid and all of these other kinds of things, if you have to do them and spend an extended period of time there, and 9 times out of 10, you don't have a job where you can take time off of work.
That's right.
That to me makes no sense. The last thing that I would say is this. There has to be a partnership and skin in the game. And what I mean by that is within the child welfare system, and this is just based on my experience, the party that needed to be at the table was education, and they never were. There were school districts. I've had kids taken from one school district to another the day before statewide testing. And and the thing that I say to people who are really not familiar with the child welfare system and the way that it works is, think about it from a child's perspective. Someone who you don't know, have never met before in your life, shows up at school, tells you you have to come with them to somebody else's house in some other community, hopefully in the same state. You can't take anything with you, and you're just supposed to go. No adult would go with them.
That's right.
But we don't give children that choice.
Thank you.
So I think that people need to work cross-functionally. The last thing, and this is because of my own knowledge of unemployment compensation, is this. Some of the rules and regulations and the way that programs work really bump up against what you're trying to do within this context.
Right.
One of the best examples of this is telling people that they cannot refuse a job. Well, if you are in a city and you can get to a bus, then you can go check a job out. But if you live in a rural community that doesn't have transportation and you are riding a bike to get to where you're supposed to go, well, if people don't do these things, then they lose their benefits, which again is another safety net.
Exactly.
That's my observation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we have, let's see, let me get my questioners in order. We're gonna put you on like 30 seconds because we gotta get done, all right? Got one here. Got a question from Craig.
Yeah, I am
If we can get the mics to people or be on standby.
Hi, I'm Simpson Hernandez, from Families USA. And I've actually been having a little bit of first of all, very inspired by the parents that are here, but I've been having a little bit of trouble squaring away being in a space like this where we're talking about advancing families in 2 generations, and hearing someone from this administration say, struggle and hardship should not be a reason to have your children taken away. Yet we see that has been happening with refugees and other immigrants under your watch.
I can answer that.
I think the question is for you.
With the Administration for Children and Families and Health and Human Services, we're the entity that after the kids were separated, we put the kids back with their parents. In the month of December alone, I placed 8,000 kids with their parents in 30 days. So I am walking my talk. I walked in, I've only been here 6 months. And if you recall, there was an executive order from this president saying we will not do separation. And so we are moving forward from HHS to say this cannot happen. So I agree with you.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the answer.
You're welcome.
All right, we got about, how much time we got, Ms. Day?
All right, I'll be
2 minutes. I got you, come on.
I'll be very brief. This is a question in reference to the child care issues that you all were experiencing. Ms. Secretary, is it possible, being that there are phenomenal structures, churches across the United States of America. And no matter what the denomination is, I think that everybody would come together around whatever religion and suggest that children versus creed, color, or whatever are all important.
Yes.
And so is there anything you can do from your position in reference to childcare to bring all pastors, ministers together because of the phenomenal buildings that they have on every corner, every street corner across the nation, to talk about the possibility of childcare, whether it's payment for them or not, because I just think that because of their buildings, rent and things like that, should not have to be an issue. So is there a way to bring that, or from the position that you stand, bring those folks together and look at childcare for individuals like the ones you're sitting in on the stage?
So I'm going to answer that quickly because I think there's one more question we want to get to. But where I used to work in Jefferson County, I had what's called the Power Partnership, and it was 150 faith-based groups that got together to do what you're talking about and other things. So just 2 weeks ago, I had my first faith summit to talk to the faith groups specifically about, I don't have enough sponsors and or beds for our unaccompanied minors that are coming over, and it moved into, and how can you help us find the adoptive parents for 123,000 foster kids, and oh yes, we have child care issues, and how do we use community, the four-legged stool, faith, nonprofits, and corporate to solve these problems. So I only had my first one. I've only been there a little while, but I expect this to grow. I do join on faith-based and nonprofit phone calls once a month from the White House to talk about some of the issues on how can we work together. We need people, and we know people are sitting in congregations. And you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter which congregations, it's people. And so absolutely, we need the whole team, nonprofits, corporations, and faith.
All right. Well, that concludes. I have hands up over here. We're going to have a waiting list because I want to come back. So thank everybody for being here and being all in for TGen. Thank you so much.